Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Henry. Check out the new swag that I got. My new Pacific Pilsner sponsorship jacket along with my logo, Cleaner Lakes. And yeah, this is an awesome little gift from Pacific Pilsner. If you're local to my province or liquor store, and check out their line of very reasonably priced beer. Pacific Pilsner is a great camping beer. Anyway, I am here on a chilly day. It's 7 degrees Celsius. I'm going to drive here in the shade. It's obviously a little bit cooler. And I'm back at Saskatchewan Lake. I'm just turning around and show you guys. So normally longtime followers will know that I dive those two. You can see through the trees right there. There's a couple of floating platforms, and I've done a couple of dives now in just sort of mid water, as I like to describe it, because I'm not near anything. So I'm going to enter. I put my scooter in the water already. My scooter is right there, and I'm going to pick a random distance. There obviously has some weather event here because there's a whole bunch of blowdowns here. You can see here they've kind of fallen some dead trees, including the one that I'm standing next to in the water here, and then on the water itself there's a bunch of wood over there. But I'm going to kind of just go in that general direction, and I know there'll be trash there because I've sort of discovered a new field of trash sort of out in that general direction. So that's where I'm going to go. All right, I will see you guys after the dive and see where we're at. It's cold. I am going to be so frozen by the time we're done with this dive.
Alrighty, so I've actually entered the lake from this point 3 times now, I think. This is my 4th time. So every time I go down, there you can see I kind of took a compass bearing. So every time I go down from this point, I kind of choose a slightly different angle. So that way I know that as I'm swimming along, the further out I go, the more I run into terrain that I've never seen before. Right. So this time I decided to kind of go closer to the shoreline. So I kind of took a compass bearing basically slightly to my left versus kind of right in the middle or more towards the floating docks. So right away I pick up, like within a minute or two, I pick up this stand-up paddleboard paddle. I was super annoyed because I didn't really want to swim with it, and I knew that I had to get it back to my starting point and just kind of leave it there. But I can see all this trash around me, so I figured, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just drop the paddle and then quickly pick up a bunch of cans, because knowing that when I go back to my starting point, drop off the paddle, and then come back, I'm not likely to see these cans again because I'm going to miss it by like 10 feet or 15 feet, maybe even more, right? Just based on how I'm scootering. So keep in mind when I'm actually scootering, like I can't really see what I'm doing, right? So you can see here I circle back and I say, oh, there's the paddle that I'm looking for that I left behind me. I was really hoping I'd find it because as you can see here, I got kind of stirred up a lot of silt dust here as I'm picking up trash. So you can see I'm getting a little bit shallow here. And I figured, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll just visually mark like a point and I'll just toss the paddle in the really shallow water, and I'm assuming that I'll be able to find it later. And picked up a couple of cans right in the shallows there. I'm like in 2 feet of water at this point. And then went back on my compass bearing and off I go. You can see here I'm a little bit darker, running like around 35 feet at this point, I think. Oh, there's an old vintage mask. They don't make masks like this anymore because they realize that the air volume inside the mask is actually quite large. And for me to clear that volume, it takes a lot of air. So it's a kind of a waste of air. So they make masks that are incredibly low volume these days. Little sun hat. And I didn't really exceed like 35, 37 feet. You can see 15 minutes into the dive, roughly 35 feet. I've already filled one bag at this point here, which means I'm bringing out my lift bag. You can see the onion bag below here is quite full. Basically, I use the exhaust gas from my regulator and I breathe out, putting a little air so it's positively buoyant. And so it makes it a lot easier to carry that bag because it does have weight underwater. Deploy a second onion bag, clip that on off. You can see here Now I'm just kind of dragging it by the open pocket of the second onion bag, and now I'm heading back to my starting point because I kind of figured, well, I filled one bag going out. I'll just go on a slightly different angle going back. I should run into terrain that I haven't seen before. You can see here it's getting a lot lighter, so I'm getting shallower, and as well as the 2 onion bags are actually quite full. So my plan worked out perfectly. And a pair of sunglasses. I didn't really find too many like weird random things, except for this thing coming right up here. I absolutely detest finding umbrellas underwater, so I knew right away 2 things. Number one, trying to collapse this thing is going to be painful because I don't want to slice my very fragile dry gloves, because if I put a hole in it, it's going to leak. So I was trying to be careful with this piece here because I didn't want to poke a hole in my glove, but it simply wasn't collapsing, so I kind of had to force it a little bit. Eventually, it just kind of gave, which I was super happy with. That easily could have gone south in a hurry, so I was pretty happy that I was able to collapse that. And off I go to my starting point. You can see here, if you notice, comparatively, my scootering speed in the same gear, I have 3 gears on the scooter, I'm moving quite a bit slower, and it's because I've got quite a bit of drag now, right? I've got my 2 onion bags completely full, and I ran into a different, this is not the paddle that I dropped off earlier. I ran into a different paddle. This is the paddle that I dropped off earlier, so I ended up finding 2 paddles. So at some point here to my safety stop, and so exiting with this much stuff in sort of gunky water is always a little challenging. So you can see here, this would be so nice if somebody was here to help me. Threw up the paddle, threw up the second paddle, threw up the umbrella, and then basically crawled my way out of the mud. Well, the dive is done. I'm not nearly as cold as I thought it was going to be. It's just the nature of how things worked out. So while I didn't have my scooter with me so I can cover a massive distance, but because I went from like 2 or 3 cans and then moved a few feet, 2 or 3 cans, so I couldn't actually run the scooter between sort of like spots of trash. Trying to move this huge thing through a water column is actually quite difficult. So as I'm just physically swimming, I'm trying to push this thing through. So it was actually a lot of work. So while I'm not like having a workout, like sweating workout underwater, it was still like a decent amount of physical exertion that it made me stay warm enough. Water temperature was, I think, it was 7 degrees Celsius. So when you're fully submersed in it, it's actually quite cold. But because I was able to just stave off that hypothermia, longtime followers can probably recognize that the fact that I can actually speak relatively well. My jaw is a little bit frozen from like cold wise, so quite stiff. But the fact that I'm not shivering, that should tell you something. I'm not actually nearly as cold as I sometimes can get this time of the year. Like right now, I think it's probably fallen below 7 degrees Celsius here at the surface. I'm probably going to be colder trying to sort the garbage than actually the dive itself. Oh my goodness. All right, I'm going to get out of my suit and then I'll take you down and show you the trash. Got 2 full bags and a few other items. Nothing of note. At the end of the dive there, you saw in the video when I encountered that umbrella. Oh, I was so upset. I'm like, oh my god, this thing better collapse. I don't want to have to swim with a deployed umbrella, making that drag coefficient thing even worse. There we go, 29 pounds of trash. Let me just lay everything out so you can kind of see what I got. But I just weighed it, and now I gotta do my photo stuff. Well, here we go, everything all laid out for you. 29 pounds of trash. We'll start from this end. We got an umbrella, 2 paddles, one which is intact and the other one is not. A couple pair of useless sunglasses, 1 plastic solo cup, 110 beer cans, nothing of significant note that I remembered. I don't know, maybe you can pause to kind of look at it and maybe there's something interesting in there for you. 10 glass bottles and 1 really old school diving mask that's all shot, and hat and 2 plastic bottles. So, sponsored by Pacific Pilsner. Sun is starting to set, but man, is it ever pretty here.
There we go, folks. What a fun time. Thank you again for Pacific Pilsner for providing this nice warm jacket, because I'm never smart enough to actually wear enough clothing to these winter dives. In fact, I got shorts on right now. Oops, I got my shorts on. Here's my So yeah, there's all the trash there. Time to pack it up. It is currently like roughly 3 o'clock. Sunset's around 4, so I had to get home. All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much to my Patreon supporters. Thank you for Pacific Pilsner for sponsoring the dive, and Lime Bike Share for dive logistics. All right, thanks guys. See you guys in the next one.